In this video, we are going to deal with the connective tissue. So we have already completed the quick revision of the part animal tissues and plant tissues of the chapter Tissues in Action. And in the animal tissues part, the first one we have covered was the epithelial tissues. And the second one we are starting now, that is the connective tissue. Okay, so in this video we are going to complete the connective tissue in detail. So first, starting with the definition of what exactly is connective tissue. So connective tissue is a tissue that will connect. As the name suggests, it connects, supports, it binds, protects, and separates the different tissues and organs of the body. So what is the definition of connective tissue? The definition is that it is a tissue that connects, supports, binds, protects, and separates the different tissues and organs of the body. So as we've already read, what is the function of epithelial tissue? The function is they'll be acting as an outer layer or will protect the delicate inner organs, or they'll be acting as an outer layer or for exchange or all these things. So in this we have the tightly packed cells in the epithelial tissues, but in the connective tissues we will not have the tightly packed cells. So in this, the thing which we will see is the cells are scattered far apart, and there will be a large amount of matrix. So what is the matrix? It is the intercellular substance. So in between cells there will be a substance which is known as the matrix. So here, unlike the epithelial tissues, the connective tissues will have cells scattered far apart. They'll not be attached or they'll not be tightly packed, but they will be scattered and they will be matrix, that is the intercellular substance, which is known as matrix. Okay, so what are the components of connective tissue? The components of connective tissue. So there will be primarily three components, that is cells, fibers, and matrix. As of now, you don't need to remember for your class about all these things, but just for an idea, I'm mentioning all the things so that you will be able to have an idea of it. So in the cells, we will be having fibroblasts, fat cells, which is adipocytes, macrophages, blood cells. And in fibers, we will be having collagen fibers for strength, elastic fibers for flexibility, and reticular fibers for support. And the matrix, as you already studied, that it is the intercellular substance. So it can be fluid, jelly-like, or solid material surrounding the cells. So these are the components of connective tissue, that is cells, fibers and matrix. And in cells we have all these things, fibers and the matrix. So next, coming to the functions of connective tissue. What are the functions? So the functions are, it connects organs and tissues, supports body structures, and it protects the internal organs, and it stores fat, transport substances, and also helps in healing wounds. So this all you'll remember in a flow when you know about the classification of the connective tissues. But as of now, you can remember the functions as follows: that it connects organs and tissues, supports the body structures, protect the internal organs, and it stores fat and transports substances and helps in healing wounds. So for each and everything, there is a separate classification of the connective tissues which we will be studying. So now we'll give a quick overview on the classification of connective tissue. So it is important that you note it down in your notes. So basically, we'll be first seeing the three classifications primarily, that is the proper connective tissue, supportive connective tissue, and fluid connective tissue. So in proper connective tissue, we'll be finding again a classification, that is the areolar tissue and the adipose tissue. In the supportive tissue, we will be having the cartilage and bone. And in fluid connective tissue, we will be having blood and lymph. So this is the primary classifications of these, and we'll be studying one by one, like areolar, adipose, cartilage, bone, blood and lymph more clearly. But as of now, remember that we have primarily three, that is proper connective tissue, supportive connective tissue and fluid connective tissue. In proper, there are two, that is areolar and adipose, and in supportive we have cartilage and bone, and in fluid we have blood and lymph. So first, speaking of the proper connective tissue. Proper connective tissue. So these tissues are mainly, they connect plus bind structures. So this is the primary thing you have to remember, that they will connect and bind structures. That is the primary thing which is done by the proper connective tissues. In that, as we have already seen, the first one is areolar tissue. So what is it? So it is most widely distributed, connective tissue. And speaking of its matrix is soft and jelly like, and it will contain fibroblasts, macrophages, collagen fibers, and elastic fibers. But as per your class, you don't have to remember all this. That is the fibroblasts, macrophages. But just for information, so that you can write it down in your notes. So I'm mentioning it, but you can remember it has matrix, is soft, and jelly is more than enough for your class. So now speaking of its location, so we've already done the epithelial the tissues like that only, like its function, location, and all these things. So in the same way, first we've already read about proper connective tissue and the three main points about it. Now we'll be looking at its location. Where is this found? So the location of this is between skin and muscles, around blood vessels, around nerves, and in between the internal organs. Right? So it is found in between skin and muscles, around the blood vessels, around nerves, and between internal organs. So in this, when you know the location, it is easy for us to inform the functions of this, that it joins skin to muscles, as it is in between skin and muscle. And next, it fills spaces inside organs, fills spaces inside organs, and it supports the internal organs, and it helps in the tissue repair as well. So these are the functions of the proper connective tissue, that is the areolar tissue, that it joins skin to muscles, it fills spaces inside organs, and it supports internal organs and also helps in the tissue repair. So, for example, when a wound heals, areolar tissue will help in the repair of the damaged tissues. So, in this way, you can remember, and the trick in which you can remember it as, see, areolar. When you see this, you have to remember that it is a area filler. It performs because it will fill spaces inside organs. So whenever you see areolar, you have to remember area filler. So areolar fills empty spaces in the body. Next, moving to the B part, which is adipose tissue. So it is the specialized tissue of storing fat, and the cells called adipocytes will contain large fat droplets. Okay, so its primary function is storing fat. So its structure is made so that it can store fat. So the location where it is found is under skin, as it stores fat. So it is found under skin, around kidneys, around heart, and around eyeballs. Okay, so what is its function? its function is obvious, that it stores energy as fat and it provides insulation against heat loss, and it protects organs from shock. Since it forms a very thick layer, so it stores energy as fat, it provides insulation against heat loss, and it protects organs from shock, because it is what it is for. It is thick layer, and so there is fat on the skin which keeps the body warm during winter as well. So the trick to remember this, like we have remembered the areolar tissue. So for adipose, whenever you see adipose tissue, you have to remember it like add fat. So adipose adds and stores fat. You can remember like that, right? So next, moving to the supportive tissue. We are moving to the supportive connective tissue. Second classification. So these tissues will form the supporting framework of the body. You already seen it will contain the cartilage and bone. So these will form the supporting framework of the body. Now first, speaking of cartilage. So the structure of this is, it is hard or it is tough, but it is a flexible tissue, and the cells are called chondrocytes. Cells are called chondrocytes, and the matrix of this, how is the matrix? It is solid, but it is flexible at the same time. And what are the characteristics of this? Characteristics of cartilage is that it will have no blood vessels. It will not have any blood vessels, and it will receive nutrients by the process of diffusion. So it will not have any blood vessels in it, and it will receive nutrients by the process of diffusion, where things go from higher concentration to lower concentrations. That is diffusion. So the way they receive nutrients is by the process of diffusion, and there will be no blood vessels. So now, speaking of the location of this, since they form the framework, so they are found in the tip of nose, external ear, trachea, that is the windpipe, and the ends of bones. This is the location of this. So what is the functions of this? As we already mentioned earlier, that the function of this is to provide flexibility, plus it prevents friction of joints at joints, because when two bones are there, so there will be a cartilage at this point, so that it prevents the friction at joints, and it supports soft structures. So it provides protection as well. So this is the function. So how do you remember the memory trick for cartilage? What is the memory trick? It is cushion. Memory trick is cushion, because cartilage acts as a shock absorber between the bones. So you can remember like cartilage has a cushion, because that is what it performs, that it will reduce friction as well, it will provide support. So you can remember it as such. Moving to the next connective tissue, that is bone. Supportive connective tissue, that is bone. So it is the hardest connective tissue. And the matrix of this is rich in calcium and phosphorus salts, and its cells are called osteocytes. So we've already seen that in the cartilage they are called chondrocytes, and in bones they are called osteocytes, and its matrix is rich in calcium and phosphorus salts and is the hardest connective tissue. And the location of this, as you know, bones, what will it make? So it will form the skeleton. And you have to remember that the human skeleton of an adult will constitute about 12 to 15% of the average human weight, but it just varies based on age, gender, and the work you do. But on average, 12 to 15% of the body weight will be that of the skeleton. So the examples of this are femur, humerus, skull, ribs, and all these things. So what is the function of bone? As we all know, it is quite simple. You can write down all these things. That is, it will give shape and it will support the body weight, and it will protect the organs, and it helps in the movement, and it also stores minerals in it. And examples are like the skull will protect the brain and ribcage will protect our lungs and heart. So like this you can remember. And I don't think you require any trick to remember bones, but still, bone in the sense it is the body's building frame. So whenever you see bone, you have to remember that it is the body's building frame. So like the iron rods that support a building, the bones will actually support the body. So you have to remember, it is very, very important. We already completed the cartilage part, and with this we have completed the connective tissues, that is supportive part. Now we'll be moving to the fluid connective tissue. So as the name suggests, fluid connective tissue. So the matrix is fluid. So first, blood. So in fluid connective tissue, we have blood and lymph. And first we are studying about blood. So blood will contain, the first thing it contains is plasma. So it is about 55% of blood. And it is a liquid matrix, and its color is in pale yellow. And what is that which constitutes the plasma? That is water, proteins, salts, hormones, and nutrients. And plasma is where we'll be having all the RBCs, WBCs, platelets, nutrients, and all the waste will be there in plasma itself. So plasma is made up of water, protein, salts, hormones, and nutrients, and it makes about 55% of the blood, and it has liquid matrix, and it is pale yellow fluid. Next, moving to the blood cells. So the second one is blood cells. So blood cells are primarily of three categories, as you already read in your previous classes, that is RBCs, WBCs, and the platelets. So RBC is red blood cell, WBC white blood cell, and platelets. So platelets will help in the clotting of blood, and RBC will contain the red pigment, that is hemoglobin, which is an iron rich protein, and it will help in the transport of oxygen. And it is important to remember that it will lack the nucleus as well, because it have to accommodate more amount of oxygen. And the white blood cells are the ones which will fight the diseases, and they provide immunity. So we have a lot of categories in white blood cells as well, but for your class you don't require to know all these things. And WBC's lifespan is about 120 days, and hemoglobin is the red pigment you have to remember. Platelets will reduce when you're infected or affected by some viral infections like dengue or something. So platelets are very important to be present in your body, and they aid in clotting. So as you all know, what is the function of blood? There is no need of special mention about it, as you already studied about RBC, WBC and platelets, but still write down the functions of blood, that it will transport O2 and nutrients to all parts, and it will remove the waste materials or products, and it protects against diseases, and it maintains the body temperature. It is very important that it aids in the maintenance of body temperature. This is what you have to remember. Now moving to the lymph part, which forms the second part of the fluid connective tissue, that is lymph. So it is a colorless fluid. It is a colorless fluid, and it is derived from the blood plasma itself, and it will contain the lymphocytes. So it is important to remember that in lymph you will be having lymphocytes, which is also a kind of WBC, white blood cells. It is a type of WBC. And the location of this is that it will flow through the lymph vessels. Okay, so what is the function of this primarily? Why is it actually there alongside the blood? Because it will return excess tissue fluid to blood, and it will transport the absorbed fats from the intestine. It will transport that, and it will also provide immunity as well. So this is the function of this. And the lymph nodes will help fight infections as well. So they'll be forming, and the nodes will be forming as the first action against infections. So like this also it provides us immunity. So how do you remember lymph? As the liquid defender. That is, it carries lymphocytes that defend the body. Okay, so with this we have come to an end of our connective tissue part. So what have we studied? So we have studied the tissues, the cells which are present in it, their location, and the function they perform, which is what we have studied in brief. So what all we have studied? We have studied the areolar tissue, adipose tissue, cartilage, bone, blood, lymph. So these both are proper connective tissues, these both are supportive connective tissue, and this is fluid connective tissue. So what are the cells which are present in it? In areolar, we have fibroblasts. In adipose, we have adipocytes. In cartilage, we have chondrocytes. In bone, we have osteocytes. In blood, we have RBC, WBC, and the platelets. And in lymph, we have the lymphocytes. Location is that it is in between organs. This is under skin. It is near nose and external ear. This is the skeleton, and this is the blood vessels, and this is the lymph vessels. And what is the function of this? It is for binding plus repair. This is for fat storage. This is for flexibility, and this is for support plus protection, and this is for transport and defense, and this is for immunity as well as for fluid balance. So once again, I'll be telling you all the ways you can remember these. So we have seen that areolar acts as an area filler, it fills up spaces, and in adipose it will store as or act as a fat storehouse, and the cartilage will be like a flexible support, and the bone is the hard support, and blood is the transport system, and the lymph will act as the defense and the drainage system. Hope you have got the connective tissues properly along with the classification, because we have already completed what all I have told in the starting in the flowchart about the connective tissues. I hope that you have made a proper notes of it. We have covered the connective tissue, the definition and everything, the functions and all, and we have covered the proper connective tissue, supportive connective tissue, and fluid connective tissue, and all these categories along with the proper end flow of everything. So hope you have understood and you made your notes.